Yes, and there we are. Hi all, a very good afternoon from the Netherlands.
Hi,
Depend-
everyone.
hi. Depending on where are you calling from at the moment, of course, good evening to you, good morning to you, or good night to you. Very nice to see you all. I'm really excited to have you on this webinar. Before we start, since it's only 4:03 here in the Netherlands, let's just wait 2 minutes before everyone that still has to end up another meeting comes in before we really start the webinar. But for the people who are already there, thank you for being on time. Again, really excited to have you. Can you please help Angelina and me and put in the chat from which country you are joining us? We have a really international crowd joining us today, so I'm really curious to see how many countries we can count on having this webinar today. So thank you very much. For the ones that have a question on where to find the chat, when you are in this webinar, you see on your right-hand side, you see a spot where you can go to the chat and add your language there. So now we are waiting. Of course, let us start with me to introduce our first poll of the day, just to see how experienced are you in when it comes to using procurement automation software. So we created a poll for you, and I'm pretty sure that it will just accidentally pop in the screen within a minute. How much experience do you have with procurement automation? It's interesting for us, before we start this webinar, to know about you, our crowd, how experienced you are, because that will determine the deepness of the details where we go into later this webinar. So from my position, I cannot see if the poll is already live, but I'm pretty sure that by now it will be. For the people that joined later, welcome all. Very excited to have you. My name is Marijn Overvest, and I'm calling in from the Netherlands, not from Amsterdam, which I'm pretty sure that you might have visited or is still on your bucket list to visit, but from a smaller city just 40 kilometers outside of Amsterdam, which is Utrecht. If you ever have the opportunity to visit the Netherlands, make sure to also visit Utrecht, because it's Amsterdam light. It's as nice as Amsterdam, maybe nicer, but less touristic. So that's the first tip of this webinar. So since it's 5 minutes past 4 here in the Netherlands, I guess we'll just start. For the people that entered later, welcome again. For the people that will enter, they will be just a bit too late, but I'm pretty sure that they catch up with what we are going to discuss later on. Everyone working within procurement knows why procurement automation is so important. Procurement automation is important for a variety of reasons, and it offers multiple benefits to companies. In summary, procurement automation is important because it can enhance efficiency, reduce costs, ensure compliance, improve supplier relationships, provide accurate data, and allow organizations to focus on strategic activities. But how to do it? And what mistakes to avoid? Exactly these questions will be the topic of our webinar today. Before we start, I have one important thing. If you have questions, please make sure to put them in the chat within the webinar, because in the end, we have saved 10 minutes and maybe a bit longer, depending on the amount of questions that you will put in, to answer all your questions. Those questions can be either to Angelina or to me. Just put them in. Make sure to say to who the question is addressed, and we will answer them in the end. So, 5 biggest mistakes when setting up procurement automation. Let's go. But first, personal perspective. We won't go into details before shortly introducing ourselves to you. So for the people who don't know me, my name is Marijn Overvest. I'm in my mid-30s, and I'm the founder of Procurement Tactics. I live in the Netherlands, as I already said, and when I'm not working, I like to sport. I do not have many hobbies next to working and sporting. And when I sport, I do this typical Dutch sporting, let's say not games, but sports like ice skating, cycling, and running. So in that way, I'm a typical Dutch guy. But I will share something more about procurement tactics later. But now let me focus on telling you why I love procurement so much. What I really like about working in procurement is that you can actually leave your stamp on the organization. You can have, as a procurement manager and as a procurement team, real impact. It is a great field for people who love critical thinking, numbers, and putting things in order, but also for those who love the more human side of work, like myself: interaction, communication, and creativity. I think I will just always love procurement, and that's why I'm happy to share some of the lessons that I learned and that Angelina learned with you here today. For today, we have a very special guest, Angelina Batsalai from Precoro. Thank you very much for joining us today. How are you today?
Thank you, Marijn, for the introduction and thank you for inviting. I am doing good, thrilled to be here as a speaker for today's webinar. Let me also share a few words about myself. My name is Angelina. I'm account executive here at Precoro. I have a privilege working with different businesses and organizations, helping them to automate their purchasing process. And I prepared some insights for you today. Hope this is going to be insightful for you as well, and excited to get started.
Nice. Okay, thank you very much for introducing yourself, and let's dive into the content. I know that we have been a bit stubborn, but that's also a typical Dutch thing. So the title of the webinar is 5 Mistakes, but we don't solely are going to focus on the 5 mistakes today, but we will holistically look at the ideal procurement automation process. And of course, by doing that, Angelina will also share some mistakes to avoid in every step of the process. So, what we are going to discuss are what are the 4 stages of procurement automation, the pitfalls, what to watch out, and of course, we will be doing that with real business cases, real success stories, and in the end, as I already mentioned, and for the people that came in later, if you have any questions, make sure to add them in the chat, and Angelina and I will answer them in the end of the webinar. Before we start with that, just a short housekeeping, some points. On the right-handed side, you will see the chat window and the Q&A window. Please make sure to use the chat window to communicate any technical issues if you have some, because we have some team members that will be helping you during the webinar to answer them and to help you if you have any technical issues. Of course, I hope internet connection will stay working for everyone out there. It's always the same question here in the office, but until now, so far so good. So let's try to start. And we will also have some polls coming in. We already had our first one in the beginning, and we will have 2 more polls coming in. So that's actually enough about the housekeeping. Let's dive right in. And Angelina, can you share something about Precoro as a company?
Sure. So, Precoro is a cloud-based procurement system. We built such a product. Our core mission is to empower organizations and businesses to break free from manual and efficient procurement process with the help of technology. About the team itself, we are on the procurement software market for over 8 years now, and currently we are a bootstrap team of 80 people across US, Lithuania, and Poland. I also wanted to share a quick idea onto what Precoro covers, what it helps businesses with. So Precoro's scope is the entire P2P process from request to payment, allowing your business to gather and process requests, build custom approval logic, manage purchasing documents, and gain complete control over company spending.
Great. Thank you so much for elaborating a bit further on that. Okay, then if we go to the next slide, I will tell you something about building better procurement, because that is actually what we do at Procurement Tactics. Just in one sentence, we educate procurement professionals to close better deals, secure supply, and advance their career. It was a few years ago that I was on this T-cross while I was working for a large global retailer where I worked within the procurement department for over 10 years. I was had the decision to either go left, become the manager of a larger team, but then I asked myself 2 questions. question number one, why are there so less companies within the world of procurement that solely focusing on upskilling procurement? I'm pretty sure that you are all very experienced in the field of procurement. You know that there are many negotiation training companies, but none of them solely focus on procurement. So I thought, okay, there might be a business gap there. And number two is, why do we have to lock ourselves up in a hotel, enter it on Monday morning, and leaving it on Thursday afternoon to upskill ourselves? So that's when we started Procurement Tactics, where we do two things. We educate only procurement professionals, and we do that via online courses, which I will share something more about you in detail in the next slide. We provide companies from all over the world with workshops, and later this year, and this webinar is a great start of that, we will launch our community, because I truly believe that procurement professionals can be upskilled via the combination of three variables. Variable number one is online learning. So that's what we provide with Procurement Tactics. Number two is learning from colleagues, because there is not really a study that you can go to become a procurement professional, right? So that's always a thing that popped into my mind when we started Procurement Tactics. Let's make sure that we will be that one. And number three, learning from other experts in the field from outside your company. So that's why we are here today. Our main focus of Procurement Tactics is that we offer online courses in our online learning platform. Basically, what we do, when clients from all over the world buy access to our online learning platform at their own pace, they can watch videos together with Excel, PowerPoint templates, and with extra reading material to upskill their skills on strategy building, negotiation preparation, and negotiation itself, how to work on a more sustainable procurement strategy, and of course, one of the let's say courses that has been a huge success, but I didn't on purpose put it on this slide. That is how to use AI and ChatGPT to your advantage in procurement to close better deals and to become a more productive employee. For today, I won't be selling our services because we are going to talk about procurement automation. So let us go to the next slide, Procurement Tactics and Precoro. So, Angelina, what do you believe is the biggest misconception people have about procurement automation?
Actually, procurement automation is often misunderstood. There are a few misconceptions, and we'll touch base on them during today's webinar. I think my personal biggest one is probably the concept of change. For some reason, businesses believe that it might be too difficult to implement and actually pull the trigger because it might seem too good to be truth, or I don't know what are the other reasons.
Yeah.
But overall, I think this is the biggest one from my point of view. And let me actually share a bit on the stages of procurement automation and kind of what you can expect there.
Perfect.
So just to understand the procurement implementation better, we can view this from start to finish as 4 stages. Stage number 1, preparation for software evaluation, right? So where's the initiative coming from? Why there is a need to change today? What is actually the problem? Then companies typically go into the market, dive deep into conversations with multiple vendors, and find the best fitted procurement software solution. Then they move on to the 3rd stage, which is implementation, and the 4th one is beyond implementation, right? So maximizing your long-term value of the chosen software. Let us carry on and continue with a little bit more details onto stage 1, right? Preparation prior to your software evaluation. So there are a few: mapping your current procurement process, right? Just understanding better what is it that you're dealing with today. What are the bottlenecks, or vice versa? What is good that you already have? Then identifying and engaging all of the stakeholders, whether this is an end user or the decision maker for this process. You would like to get people on board before you carry out decision as of just one person for everyone. The next one is determining the ideal future state. So actually, how do you imagine things ideally? How will you understand if you actually got to the right place? A few next ones are developing a requirements document. I think most of the procurement software reps are happy to work on this requirements document together with clients, right? This is just to make your evaluation process more structured, documented, and work on this, collaborating on this together. Building a clear action plan and finish up with a defined criteria for success. So before we continue, can you just also vote in the poll right here? In your opinion, what is the most significant benefit of implementing procurement automation? Perfect. So let us carry on and review the first problem, which is internal stakeholder alignment. All of those problems are real cases, by the way. They are either something from a specific company that we've worked with or a combination of mistakes that happened across multiple. So let us review this one. Imagine a scenario where there is a passionate individual about this procurement software automation. They recognize a problem and drive the project forward. They manage to garner all necessary resources, support from the company's leadership, and initiate the change. However, as it sometimes happens in overall life, not only business world, this key driver may depart or leave the company, whatever it happens. Whether this is during the early onboarding stages or post-go live stages, it still puts the software implementation at risk. So let us also look at what would be the solution for this. So to mitigate the risk and ensure that successful adoption of the software is happening, it's important to maintain momentum and commitment even when the initial champion departs. Combination of teams, sales, customer success team, and the champion himself should work on a constant internal alignment about the importance of the problem they are solving and the metrics it'll affect. So even when the person who initiated the project and was driving this forward, even when they leave, the understanding of the problem does not go away and the software you purchased doesn't become a shelfware. So this was just our first problem. Marijn, this was not really tech backed up. So I'm curious to know a little bit more about your thoughts here. I know you're working a bit more with the teams mainly. So maybe any comments that you have.
Yeah, one thing that struck my mind is that from my experience in helping procurement teams from all over the world to achieve upskilling team capabilities and being a strategic partner with CPOs to drive change in their business, I saw that in many companies, procurement managers who were not able to implement projects due to the fact that they were lacking important project management skills like strategic planning and change management. So based on that experience or that learning, I'm interested in your view because you're so experienced with this. Can you help our audience of today? Can you share your view on a more personal level? What are important skills to achieve stakeholder alignment within and without, or let's say external from your company?
Right. That's a good question. I think first and foremost, you have to be effective communicator. And to be so, you need to align on those problems with the champion, right? You have to understand why you actually need this. Why is it important for the team that you are persuading them onto, right?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, so effective communication, probably the biggest one. Yeah, that would be my answer to this.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Then let us carry on and look into the next problem, which is a part of the stage one, developing a requirements document, right? So if you do not do this requirements document or just overall have some issues there, you might face the problem, which is unclear expectations about the software. So consider the case of a nonprofit organizations. Let's say in the United States, that was our case, that started implementation of a new system. The onboarding process encountered a significant delay due to a specific unique tax calculation logic that the organization uses, which is sometimes a case, especially with, again, nonprofit. This tax calculation issue was not addressed during the initial stages, and it resulted in challenges during implementation. What would be the solution here? So the key lesson from this scenario is the importance of clearly understanding your organization's unique requirements and seeking concrete confirmation, not just verbal assurances during the sales process. So you have to ask for validation when you're talking with a software representative. You have to try to apply your process as much onto the software as possible, asking about certain customization at places, and actually, right, addressing your unique processes that you have.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that was our second problem. Marijn, maybe you have anything interesting to share here.
Yeah, I thought of this in advance, and actually, I have a funny story to share with you because, in my opinion, it is very clear. It's very important to have clear expectations about where to use software for and how to use it. In helping procurement teams, I learned this. There's often a gap between sender and receiver when it comes to understanding the expectations of software and how to use it. I learned that what can be very clear for you can be very not clear for me, and surprisingly, you can never tell in advance who will get something fast or late. So I learned that when in my period as a procurement manager, we asked all our suppliers to put in a new system all their, let's say, product specifications. I thought that everything was clear, but just before the deadline approached, there were many suppliers calling me, okay, Marijn, it's not clear how to do it. Why should I do it? Can you help me? They all had difficulties entering the specifications just before the deadline. One solution that I learned in my period there is to implement as many Q&A sessions while implementing new software. Because by doing this, you always give yourself, and that's also very important for procurement managers, some negotiation leverage later when clients have not done anything just before the deadline approaches. So thank you for asking, but that was just one of the examples that came to my mind.
Exactly. And this made me think of another kind of personal skill during this implementation process that is useful. I would think empathy, right? And it doesn't only belong to the sales teams that are working with the clients, which is of course important, but also from the client's perspective. So you really have to take a step back and just try to be as simple in explaining as simple and thorough in explaining what is happening on your end, so that the person who is actually in front of you can help you in the best way possible.
Exactly. Yes.
Perfect. So let us carry on, and we'll continue with the stage 2, which is solutions evaluation, when the company is going to the market and research for the best fitted solution. Should ideally undertake those 3 steps, which is market research, understand what's out there overall, what is technically different between them, what is the onboarding support they provide that is different and more applicable to your case. Select the software itself, and the last one is work on a business case. Before we continue on discussing this in detail, there's also additional poll coming in. So which tool do you use now? Perfect. And our moderator says that there is a question in the chat. Let us find this real quick.
Yeah, great idea.
How to make an internal business case for P2P versus BPA on new workflow automation solutions. So I can say what is our practice in Precoro. We have a few criterias for a business case that help clients to present the solutions internally. Because if it's a procurement specialist talking to us, presenting to the finance team, as an example, finance team is interested in just tangible results. What's in it for us? So we gather a few data points from you, like your annual spend, volume of transactions you work with, so that we can prepare a bit more tangible results that you could present internally and also help you drive forward. Not only this is the presentation, but if we go back to this first problem that we were discussing, it's also to show the whole team what we are after, what are our expected results, right? So this is just a few things that I wanted to share from the perspective of how we work on business cases at Precoro.
Great.
Awesome. Glad you're asking questions in the chat. Feel free to continue those, and we'll address them throughout the webinar. Perfect. Let us go deeper into our stage 2 problems. And this is not planning for when the business will scale. Let us review this on the example of our company, which was a pharmaceutical company that have been using certain software for 3 years. And for several reasons, they reached out to Precoro. Firstly, the functionality in the client's account depended on the package they buy, right? So different solutions have different approach to pricing. This one was package-based. It so happened that they moved away from this model pretty quickly, and the client wanted to get access to a few more functions like API and additional modules in the system itself. For this, they had to switch to the new package, which was much more expensive and was not forecasted when they were implementing the solution at first. So the client asked, of course, the software whether there is anything they can negotiate about, but they were refused, even though they've been already partnering for some time. So it's the second reason was that over the 3-year period, the client's company not only experienced growth, but also alterations to the procurement process, right? They started with a rather basic one, and when they felt more confident with the system, they adopted a more sophisticated approach. So they communicated those changes and to the software, got refused to review the package or the pricing, and found themselves in a position where they were covering half of the process in the system that was still supporting their needs, and half of their process that was no longer supported in the system, again, on the side. So basically where they were coming from, right? Manual approach, spreadsheets that get broken every time someone touches something extra, emails, and that kind of stuff. So here's the solution that we have for this case. So in this specific situation, the client made the strategic decision to transition to Precoro, and Precoro was selected for our commitment to support the business through different stages of growth and remain a sustainable solution. This is possible through a few ways. First, we charge only for users. Every single module, every single functionality that we have right now or released in the future is available to the client. It's only up to you to choose the right process for you as of today, right? So again, you can start very basic. Any change is already a stress for the team. So you might start with a simple one and then build on as the company continues to grow. Yeah, so that was pretty much it onto this one. Marijn, I know you have an interesting case here from the pandemic times. It seemed a long time ago, but actually showed a lot of learning takeaways for a lot of businesses going forward.
Yeah, true. So in the time, as I already said, I worked for this large global retailer for 10 years, and at the moment that COVID came to the world, early 2020, I was responsible for sourcing as a sourcing manager or procurement manager for pasta and rice. And of course, these two products were exactly the two products that were being, in the Netherlands they say hamsteren, but in English it's like people were stocking them. So they were going to the store, buying 20 pieces of rice, 20 pieces of pasta. And I was responsible for the procuring of that. And it was a huge problem because since people were directly stocking all these products, I directly found out who of my suppliers were ready for growth or scaling up and who were not. So actually, I found out that the companies that did the best in, let's say, being ready for future growth were the ones that had software automation. So they always knew what is the stock that they have at the warehouse, what is the stock that is on its way to the supermarket. So in that
Right.
way, I learned that you need to be ready for the future and always prepare for the unexpected.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing, Marijn. We also have a few questions from Sandra. So she's curious what ERP solutions are mostly used by companies globally. And the other one was, how do you handle internal resistance to procurement automation? Because that's an issue I'm grappling with right now. Two great questions. Let me start with the first one about ERP solutions that are mostly used by companies globally. So there are a few. I can name them or get back to you, Sandra, over email with some more details. But generally speaking, in in today's world, there are a few ways how you can approach automation, procurement automation through ERP and non-ERP systems. Uh, Let me give you some more context. ERP systems are mostly used by larger enterprise companies that touch not only a small, not small, but just one single process like procurement, but also HR, finance piece, and this is all connected within one system. Such systems were already on the market. mm, Around 30 years ago they first started coming out, so they are big players. There are a few things that are negative about them, in addition to what is positive, that you can streamline all of your processes from any department within one system. So disadvantages are the cost. They are not cost friendly and are not meant for small and medium businesses. So it's difficult for such companies to start using ERPs. And the other one is implementation. They are not as much focused on the end user. Rather than the manager. So the manager is happy because they can oversee things that are integrated, right? Processes that are integrated. They can get reports that are very advanced, given that a lot of processes are covered within one system. But at the same time, it's difficult for end users who are not tech savvy to use them. Plus, the implementation itself, when you're just starting to roll out the system, usually takes quite some time. I've heard my case that I had was that the client was implementing one ERP for over a year, and when they implemented it, they realized that it doesn't work for them. There were a few reasons for this, but overall, yeah, that can be quite lengthy, putting a lot of resources into this, and still driving some issues. If we're talking about biggest ERPs on the market, it's SAP, Oracle Suite, Ariba, right? There are the few that I named. If we're talking, yeah, so Sandra is saying that, so you're suggesting that ERP systems have integration and implementation issues are prevalent. Yes, that's a good sum up, Sandra. Also, just a bit on the perspective how Precoro and our similar solutions are different is that, for example, Precoro was built in mind that smaller businesses cannot afford and do not need to afford bigger ERPs. We are definitely able to support you through from start and retain a sustainable solution going forward. Of course, every business is striving to grow, so we will be able to support you through that, but also make it about the end user, make it simple, engaging for the team to involve in the process and still get all the visibility and control to the higher management. Perfect. And the other one was, how do you handle internal resistance to procurement automation? Because that's an issue I'm grappling with right now. I feel, Yasendra, that a few of my clients actually mentioned this to me as well. Moreover, I had a case where there was a consultant hired internally. They're working with them on a project basis, so they've hired them as a contract person, and his main goal was to automate processes, and even he was grappling with this issue, even though that was just his main concern, and he was hired for that. So I would need to know a little bit more in kind of context as to what team are you from, kind of what are the issues that you are facing for the need of automation, right? What are the objectives from your team? But overall, I would say that as long as you're driving the initiative and getting all of the help you need that is on the market, that's all that matters. Perfect. And Sandra just gets back to us saying that I'd like to know more about the solution that you mentioned. Sandra, we would be happy to connect with you and discuss this on a more personal level. So I think our moderator will get back to you through email.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, just for our time efficiency, let us carry on, and then we can always get back to the questions as we speak. Let us continue with stage 3, which is implementation. So the implementation process can be also split into a few stages. The biggest one is probably data preparation, right? So you already chosen the solution, but you have to somehow input all of the data into this, prepare the accounts, right? So that kind of stuff. The other one is implementation itself and the change management. Our first problem during this stage, overlooking the importance of the customer success team. So let us look at this case where the company implemented a certain software, taking their word for how that certain functionality works. It so happened when they actually got to the implementation, it became clear that a few things were not quite how they expected. So, right, it somehow connects to the previous mistake we were looking at as to not getting actual visual validation for what you expected. And in this case, the client realized that QuickBooks integration is not out of the box or direct, right? In other words, but it's more of a manual export and import of files. It then became evident that when changes are made in the software, the invoice is not instantly synchronized with QuickBooks. And the other one was there was also some bugs, some issues with the budgeting module. Seems like that was all. The situation was even worse, that it so happened that the onboarding process, the implementation support they provided was also very poor. So the client itself, themselves were responsible for implementing the solution, and the support they got was very vague, right? It's just, email support, chat support with template messages, not really wanting to understand what's their specific issue, what they are struggling with. So a few solutions here. Before you choose the vendor that meets your needs, ask the vendor to demonstrate the integrations live. This will allow you to see how it works in real time, and this can help you assess the level of automation and convenience it offers. Also, on the side note, some systems are providing testing of the integrations. This is the case with Precoro. We do provide integrations with testing integrations with a few systems, and this is definitely a good kind of finishing point for when the companies are just to pull the trigger but need some more confidence, or for example need if also as answering Sandra's question, if it's an accounting team who is just resistant, you can get them involved and just show what would be the process exactly for them, letting them test it to make sure that everything looks good. And the other suggestion here is also seeking for references. So I don't know any company out there who wouldn't boast about who their clients are. So ask them proactively if they're not offering ahead of time to share context of actual clients they have right now, and talk to them. Either it can be either similar structure of the team that have similar process, or same region. We even actually had a case where our client, our potential client back then, went to physically to our reference, and they had a talk. They were able to actually show them physically how that works for them. So that was also a good, just comforting place for them. A few things is also case studies. When there are any case studies published online, feel free to just take advantage of them, and also proof of concept. Consider conducting a proof of concept with the vendor that you're considering. This involves testing the software capabilities using your specific data and running your specific use cases to determine if it closely aligns with your requirements. Perfect. So
thanks for sharing these. Thanks for
sure.
sharing these tips, Angelina. Actually, I recognize many of them in helping procurement teams, and from my period that I worked as a procurement professional myself. And actually, I think that I truly believe that client focus should be always number one. Either you work in a company or you have your own company. Since we are growing Procurement Tactics and be working in a procurement environment, I just live through a few rules, which I always, when I wake up, I think of, okay, these are the most important rules. So rule number one, external meetings and contacts are always way more important than internal business. Rule number two, I always have this rule to reply within 12 hours when anyone reaches out. That's what I do now, but that's what I also did as a procurement manager. And of course, and I know that you already mentioned that, is go out of your office. So visit clients, visit potential clients to learn about how do they perceive your product and what can be better. And in the end, of course, make sure that you have an agile approach in testing things small instead of doing everything all the way until you find out that it might be not the best solution. So thank you for sharing these tips.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marijn. I was just actually checking in if we had any questions. So continue to put questions in chat. We'll make sure to address them later on. Perfect. So let us continue and talk about ignoring change management. This was our second problem during stage 3. So let's consider a case where an educational institution, So the management decided to introduce procurement automation without involving employees in the change management process itself. So as a result, employees felt left out, uninformed, and therefore resistant to the new system. This led to delays in approvals, errors in purchase orders, and a noticeable decrease in morale among the procurement team. All sounds very reasonable. Case with a lot of different clients, and we also have a solution for this. So what we recommend is that this company should have invested more time and resources in change management training, communicating the benefits of automation to their staff. By engaging the team early on, they could have fostered a more cooperative atmosphere and ensured a smoother transition, which could really bring on to the overall kind of mood in the team about this whole thing. When it was kind of already too late to do this, when they were already resistant. Perfect. So excellent. Let us carry on and go on to the stage 4, which is beyond implementation. This one is interesting because there are already a lot of obstacles before you get there, but it doesn't end just like this. In order for really running the automation effectively, there has to be a continuous improvement as the company continues to grow, continues to expand, or just process may change. So what does that mean? Imagine a company, a manufacturer of consumer electronics. They successfully implement procurement automation to streamline their supply chain. Initially, they achieved significant cost savings and process efficiency. However, over the next period of 2 years, they noticed a gradual decline in procurement efficiency. The lead times for critical components started increasing, and quality issues arose due to delayed orders. Also, a few KPIs were revealed. So actually, they shared that there was a 12% reduction in cost savings compared to the first year. So this one seems a bit difficult, right? Because they're not already manually processing procurement in this specific case. They've already done something, it worked, and they are back into square one. So what we suggest in such cases is that the company should have adopted a continuous improvement plan, right? They ideally, it should have been a dedicated procurement optimization specialist or even a team for regular data analysis and performance monitoring. So this person would have collaborated with suppliers to either expand the supplier management they have, right? Go out and search for more vendors, or just identify bottlenecks with the current ones. Also, conduct the market research and find better deals out there, and regularly update procurement strategies. So by proactively addressing this and adapting to the changes, you could also maintain and increase the competitive edge in procurement. It's easier for the teams who have procurement teams inside, because when the company adopts the software, it's exactly the procurement team who benefits in terms of their strategical tasks. They have more time, more motivation to look out for better deals in the market, alternative suppliers, analysis of what they are doing today. And typically, it would be best if the procurement specialist would be responsible for this continuous improvement. Excellent. So I see our moderator says there are a few more questions. So let us answer Grace's question before we continue.
Yeah.
How can one make management understand the importance of procurement team training where you only have one MD to seek approval for? Okay.
That's one that I can answer, right? Sure. So this is one of the questions that I'm being asked many times, and actually the answer is no matter how large or how small the team is, it all starts with what would you like to improve with doing your job on a daily basis. So a new variable, for example, that approached the market in the last few years that we as procurement managers are facing every day is our, let's say, aim to procure more sustainable on one hand, and to use AI and, for example, ChatGPT as, let's say, drivers of business success. These were two variables that were not important in the past. Like negotiations, you will know that's a thing that was very important 50 years ago, and that will be very important in 50 years. So if you want to upskill on that, of course, you can tell your manager that you want to upskill that, but probably most procurement managers get training on that. But I will say that take the angle of new variables that are very important to understand, to act within your role of procurement, even while working alone and requesting the training to your MD. that will be my point of starting, actually. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, Marijn, actually, there was another question to you. So our moderator said that people are wondering which software do you use to make your presentations, and how influenced are you in using AI for the posts?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually, because I'm working together with my co-founder Ralph, I'm in my mid-30s, but he's younger in the 30s. He calls me a boomer once in a while. But the thing is, I use ChatGPT on a daily basis. So I just forced myself to, when I open Google Chrome, which I use, then I have the tab of ChatGPT open. And when I prepare for a presentation, I just tell ChatGPT what propose me with an outline for the storyline, and it will propose slide 1 till 11 what should be included in the presentation. When I write the social media post, I'll put in what my goal is, and he or she will ChatGPT will come up with a text that I can use. So actually, in our work from Procurement Tactics, we use it for many different things, except for the creation of our trainings, because the trainings are a mix of scientific research, company examples, and examples of my own personal background. So too bad we cannot use ChatGPT for that now, but in the future, I'm pretty sure that will change as well.
Right. Perfect. So it's now time for you to ask your final questions while we are into a Q&A.
Yeah.
So yeah, and meanwhile, I think while people are still active in the chat, we can make just a final sum up. Marijn, can you please take over?
Yeah, of course. So thank you very much for elaborating on the mistakes to avoid and all the stages that are important when it comes to procurement automation. I really enjoyed listening to your stories, and I learned a lot from you presenting the slides. So actually, I personally learned from your perspective that it's important to have clear expectations about the automation goals, that it is important to at all times align with everyone within and outside of your organization before implementing procurement automation. And thirdly, use change management as an important driver for success.
Perfect.
So,
Marijn, you made right conclusions. I think you could definitely implement this solution for your team now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So meanwhile, we had the wrap up. Any new questions came in?
Let me check.
No, right. Okay, then maybe one question, because the majority of the questions was regarding AI and tech savviness. So I already made the joke that my co-founder thinks I'm well in my mid-30s, but if I want to implement procurement automation software as a procurement manager or as a procurement team, how tech savvy should we be to let's say make it a success? Can you also make it a success if you do not have the best technological background?
Right. I guess this is the question that is often asked in today's world, because just the automation and overall technology is just developing at a crazy speed, and you continuously have to improve, even if you're, it's not super already a tech savvy person. So when it comes to procurement softwares, I really believe it depends on the specific software solution that you're considering. Like we mentioned earlier, answering Sandra's question, that ERPs are exactly more difficult for end users.
Yeah.
As an example. So I would say in general, newer softwares like Precoro as well, they are designed to be more user-friendly and accessible to individuals with different levels of technical expertise. I would say the key to successful adoption of procurement software is effective training and support, regardless. So again, this is also something that you do have to consider when choosing the software, what is the training they provide, right? Is it going to be on your shoulders? You taking your time out of your working day to, deduct an hour or two to actually go through the process, uh, understand the problem of your non so tech savvy people and train them, or is it going to be someone on the side helping them? So in Precoro, we also have two options. One is a bit more basic for exactly teams who are tech savvy. We are out there to help them if they need us. Or another one where we are almost there, like their full-time full-time team member on this project, making sure that we handle all of the data uploads, personal training sessions. So we are out there already knowing what could be the problem, as this is the one person working with them from day one. So again, you can approach this in a few ways, but Marijn, I do not think you're not so tech savvy.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, I just checked the chat, and Sandra, thanks for your compliment about what we do on LinkedIn with Procurement Tactics. We'll keep up the good work in collaboration with Precoro, of course. And I saw another question. I hope you pronounce your name good. Rishikesh. If the courses are helping to get a job in the Netherlands, that will be an answer. To be fully honest with you, I don't know, but being educated always helps in finding any job. But this might be a topic that we can discuss with the two of us in a later moment. So approach me via LinkedIn, and I will help you out in answering the question more thoroughly. Because it's already time to wrap this webinar up. Angelina, thank you very much for joining us today.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. All the people from all over the world that joined us today, thank you very much for joining us. I hope to see you back in our next webinars. And I would not close this webinar before sharing with you that if you have any questions for either Angelina or me, make sure to add us via LinkedIn and we can answer all your questions. Again, thank you very much for your being here, for your presence, for being here today, and enjoy your evening, your night, or your morning, or your afternoon. And it was a pleasure, and speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.